I decided to pick the tallest stand from the tallest person, so I'll try to work around it a little bit. My name is Andy. I'm one of the pastors here. One of the things, a big thing of who we are is home. So I hope that you guys feel like home or find a home and know that you are part of our family. If you guys, this is the first time you've been back since the summer, welcome back. So excited to see you guys. If this is the first time that you've ever kind of sat around our dinner table or our lunch table, I guess, thank you for joining us. We're so excited to see you and be able to kind of share this time together. A little bit about myself. I'm a married man. My wife is right there, my beautiful wife. I've been married to her over 3 years, and I have an awesome little guy in the back. He's 7 months tomorrow. So that's kind of a big part of my life. My wife, she kind of does kind of wears a million different hats. She's a stay-at-home mom. She works, she's kind of on staff at New Life, and then also she runs a nonprofit called Unchained that fights human trafficking. So she's doing things constantly, 24/7. And sometimes what happens is that she has meetings that she can't have at her house, and she has to go out. So that's where I come in. I come in and I but I get the opportunity to hang out with my little guy. And I remember one of these times that I hung out with him. It was the first time that I ever had to feed him by myself. He's 3 months in. I don't know if you guys notice anything, but I can't really produce milk, so that's kind of a hindrance here, so she has milk for me in the refrigerator, and I have all this anxiety. Because here's the thing, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, what if I feed him this bottle, and what if he is so hungry? What if he's eating, what if I spill the bottle and he has no milk? What if she's caught somewhere and she's late and he he doesn't, he's still hungry. I'm freaking out about this. This is there's a lot of anxiety. When you guys become dads, trust me, there's a lot of anxiety about this. And I'm okay, so, I'm playing with him, and then he finally just lets out this huge scream. Usually he's more hunga, hunga. He actually is hunga. He's I don't know where that deep, voice comes from. But he's usually says that, but this time he's screaming his head off. I'm okay, so I run to the refrigerator. You can't give cold milk, just a tip. You have to go put it in the warmer. So you put it in the warmer and you hit 2 minutes and 30 seconds, which is the longest 2 minutes and 30 seconds of your entire life, because your son is screaming his head off. You're oh my gosh, is he going to die? What's going on? Is he going to be scarred forever because he's not getting food immediately? And then it's a minute passes, then 2 minutes, and then it's 30 seconds, 29, 28, 27. You're hurry up, for crying out loud. Then it finally beeps, and I'm oh my gosh, all right, great. So I take it out, and I put a little bit on my hand, my wrist, to see if it's too hot. In the top, we have one little bottle and one lid that goes, it basically spills. So all this milk spills on my hand. I'm oh my gosh, the worst case scenario just happened. So I go and I put another lid on top. Then I go and I get my comfy chair, because I gotta be comfy, gotta be relaxed. So I get my comfy chair, I get him, I throw the bottle, and he just goes to town. And he's taking this bottle down, he's calming down, and then his eyes start to flutter. He's getting his milk buzz on. He's feeling great. And then he's done. I burp him. He's starting to hold his little paws are holding onto my finger. I'm burping him. I'm rocking him. And then he just goes to sleep. And I just hold him there. I just hold him there until she gets home. I share that story because that's a memory that I will never forget. It was the first time that I actually felt like a dad. It was the first time that it wasn't on her. It was actually all the responsibility was on me. And I'll never forget that for the rest of my life. And here's the thing. We all have these moments. We all have these glimpses of satisfaction. These moments where we feel filled. These moments where it's man, this is what life is all about. And I think, and then this is the first point in your bulletin, is I think we all desire to live a life of satisfaction. and fullness. I think we all desire to live a life that is satisfied and full. But this isn't what we typically experience in our reality a lot of times. And that's really what our series over the next 5 weeks, we're kind of starting this series called Enough up there. And this is what we're going to be going over for the next 5 weeks. And we're really going to be answering this question. Where do we find long-lasting or sustainable satisfaction and fulfillment? And how do we get it? Where do we find long-lasting or sustainable satisfaction, and how do we get it? So if you guys want to flip with me to Ecclesiastes, we're going to be in the book of Ecclesiastes. If you haven't read it, it's very different from most books, and it's pretty awesome. So we're in Ecclesiastes 1:1. And Ecclesiastes 1:1 simply starts out, the words of the teacher, son of David, king of Jerusalem. So we kind of have to get a context of who is writing this book. Most people, and it's pretty obvious that it is Solomon. If you don't know who Solomon was this great king. He was the son of David. He's the king of Jerusalem, and he's this very wise man. Like God had asked him, God's like, I can give you everything. Like, I'm going to act like I can give you one thing. You tell me what you want. And Solomon is like, I just want wisdom. And God's like, well, because you didn't ask for health, wealth, or power over your enemies, I'm going to not only give you wisdom, but I'm going to give you all of those things. So his kingdom flourished. Not only was he really wise, but his kingdom flourished. There's a lot of riches, a lot of affluence. There are people and kings and dignitaries who came from all over the world to not only see the kingdom, but to meet Solomon. So here's a guy who's experienced probably anything that we can imagine, who's kind of a big deal, and this is his take. This is his take on life. This is what he's written at the end of his life, and he's basically saying this is what life is all about. So in verse 2, he starts out this great book and says, meaningless, meaningless, says the teacher, utterly meaningless. Everything is meaningless. That's a really great start. Thanks, Solomon. You're a nice Debbie Downer there. But this word meaningless in Hebrew means hebel. The word is hebel, and it means fleeting or temporary or futile. Basically, like everything is lost. Like in the end, everything is going to be lost. That there's nothing of real substance or value or permanence or significance. It's basically empty. And that's your first point, your number one, is that we all experience emptiness. We all experience emptiness at some point in our lives. I think if you were honest, you could look at your daily life and see that there's some emptiness here. Let me ask you a question. Have you ever felt like you're caught in an endless cycle, day in and day out? Have you ever felt that before? Ever had kind of a routine going on? Wake up, go to class, homework, slide in some Netflix, go to sleep, wake up, go to class, slide in some homework, go to sleep, wake up, go to class, exam, homework, Netflix, sleep. Or maybe your cycle is get up, go to work, come home, make dinner, do the dishes, do some errands, go to sleep. Or maybe you have a completely different routine. But we all have these routines, this kind of circle, this kind of cycle every day. Have you ever felt monotony? Or felt like you're in this endless cycle of monotony? Or you're kind of just in this haze of the mundaneness of life, or it just seems like, man, like my daily life is just kind of purposeless. Or it seems like I'm not really accomplishing anything. Like, I think we've all felt this at one point. I think we've all felt this emptiness. In verse 4, this is what Solomon has to say. He says, generations come and generations go, but the earth remains forever. The sun rises and the sun sets and hurries back to where it rises. The wind blows to the south, it blows to the north. Round and around it goes, ever returning on its course. All streams flow into the sea, yet the sea is never full. To the place the streams come from, there they return again. So here, Solomon is actually talking about the cyclical nature of nature. You have the sun rising, the sun setting, and actually it's interesting. It's like, have you ever felt like I just never get enough sleep? It's like as if the sun is like hurrying back to rise again. It's like this constant cycle. And then you not only have that, but then you have the wind, and you have the jet streams going on, and it's like it's going south, it's going north, it's going back south. Then you actually have the water cycle, which is crazy because he's like talking about the some biology in here and some water cycle, and it's like you have the streams, they flow into the sea, then they get evaporated into the sky, then they rain, back into the streams, back into the sea. Just this endless cycle of nature. It's like we see this in nature, and I think we see this in our daily lives as well. I think we also see this emptiness or this meaninglessness in our fixation on that one thing that you don't have. Do you guys have that one thing where it's like, man, if only I had this one thing? Let me share a story. I'm from Westchester, Ohio. Who knows where Westchester, Ohio is? I know there's some people in here who are actually from there, which is great. Got my posse. But Westchester is a suburb of Cincinnati. I went to high school there. And in high school, this is how I looked at my life. I looked at my life like this huge puzzle. And I was like, man, I've got like great family, great friends, I've got like a great future, I've got like faith in there as well. I've got this great puzzle, everything's going great, but this one piece is missing. And for me, it was a relationship. Like I wanted a girl. And I know a lot of you guys are like, that's not really what I'm looking for right now. That's okay. Whatever that one thing is, for me, that was just such a huge part of my life that it actually drove my decisions. There's a reason you came to Ohio State. It wasn't probably because of a relationship or you wanted a relationship, but it's probably a career. That might be your piece, but for me, it drove my decisions. Actually, it drove my decision to come to Ohio State. I didn't come to Ohio State because of a career. I came to Ohio State because when I was a freshman in high school, I came on campus, visited my brother, went to a bunch of parties, and I was like, this is it. This is going to be awesome. Like, this is going to be the place. I'm going to come here. I'm going to reinvent myself. I didn't drink in high school, but I threw myself into that in my freshman year because my thought was, man, I'll be drinking and some girls will be drinking and you never know what's going to happen. Maybe something will happen, like it'll be like cool, and I was just like, that was what I threw my whole life into. That's what I did every weekend, over and over and over. That was my cycle. I'd be so excited. I have so much hope. Maybe this is the night that I'll get this final puzzle piece, and then I'd walk back and be alone and lonely every night, or every weekend. I remember one night in particular, I was walking back with my roommates, like past Browning Amphitheater in South Oval, right next to Mirror Lake, and I just started crying. Like I was drunk, I was crying, and him and I were just like, why won't anybody love me? Why won't anybody love me? Maybe for you that isn't the question that you're asking. Maybe it's why can't I get this? Or why can't I get that? But I think there's something in us that in our pursuits, there's an emptiness in these pursuits. I think if we be honest with ourselves, and I know this is a little morbid, but I think if we even looked at the end of our lives, we would see this meaninglessness play out, this endlessness played out. Mark Twain has this incredible quote talking about funerals, and he says, "The world will lament you for an hour and forget you forever." It's really interesting. If we look at the passage in verse 9, what has been will be again. What has been done will be done again. There is nothing new under the sun. Is there anything of which one can say, look, this is something new? It was here already long ago. It was here before our time. There is no remembrance of men of old. And even those who are yet to come will not be remembered by those who follow. There's this stand-up comedian named Demetri Martin, who, I don't know if you guys know who Demetri Martin is. I'm not necessarily saying, hey, you should go on Netflix and watch Demetri Martin. There's some funny things, some things that are a little offensive. But anyways, he has this bit, and he's talking about a tombstone. He's like, just notice what's on people's tombstones. You have their day of birth and their day of death, and then all of their life is a dash. Have you ever thought that before? You don't get to put your resume on your tombstone. You don't get to put, your 401k or how much you made in life. You don't get to put your accomplishments. You don't get to put your curriculum vitae. You don't get to put anything really on your tombstone except your birthday, your death day, and your dash. Everything, all that you do is just a dash at the end of the day. And someone who's going to stumble upon your tombstone is just going to see a dash. One of my favorite movies is Midnight in Paris. Has anybody seen Midnight in Paris? Okay, I'm going to highly recommend it because it is an incredible movie. Basically, I love to write, and it's about a writer who's writing like a book in current day, and then he gets transformed or wherever, he gets sent back to like 1920. And 1920s is the absolute best, greatest time, I think, in the entire timeline of existence, because you have like the jazz age, and you have all these writers and artists, and it's like awesome, and they're in Paris, and at that time, he's seeing like Hemingway and Fitzgerald, and in this movie there's all these references to all these writers and artists and dancers and filmmakers, literally to the point where I'm like, I have no idea who these guys are. Like, I sat down one time and just Wikipedia'd everybody. I'm like, oh, now I know who that guy is. And like, now I know who that guy is. And back then, these guys were like the most famous people who like walked on earth. But how is it 100 years later, and I feel like I'm an average cultured person. Like, I don't know who these people are. Like our celebrities, our Kim Kardashians and Kanye West, 100 years from now, will we remember them? We'll be dead, but will our kids and our grandkids, will people remember them? That's basically what Solomon is saying here. He's saying that what you do in your life is actually meaningless. Like, people aren't even going to remember you. They might remember you now, but they won't remember you then. It's a tough pill to swallow. I understand that. And our usual response to that is point number 2. And it's that we attempt to fill our emptiness. That's our response. We experience this in life, in daily life, in the bigger picture of life, in our pursuits, and then we attempt to fill our emptiness. In verse 12, Solomon says, I, the teacher, was king over Israel and Jerusalem. I devoted myself to study, to explore by wisdom all that is done under heaven. So he's basically saying, like, man, I experienced this emptiness, this meaninglessness, but now I'm going to try to, fill this with wisdom and with understanding. He's like, what a heavy burden God has laid on men. I've seen all the things that are done under the sun. He's like, I've experienced all this, and I've observed all of this stuff. As whatever you can imagine, I've experienced and observed that. He's saying all of them are meaningless, a chasing after the wind. What is twisted cannot be straightened. What is lacking cannot be counted. I thought to myself, look, I have grown and increased in wisdom more than anyone who has ruled over Jerusalem before me. I've experienced much of wisdom and of knowledge. And then I applied myself to the understanding of wisdom and also of madness and folly, but I learned that this too is a chasing after the wind. Just basically, I love that verse in 15. That basically what is twisted can't be straightened. That what is lacking can't be counted or it can't be filled. I think we all have a there. Just that you guys are here at Ohio State means that you have a there. What I mean by that is you're here right now, and that there is some there of satisfaction that you're pursuing after. Most of us, it's probably like some career. Like, man, once I graduate, I get that degree, then I will be there. I will finally get there. I will finally enter into the career that I want. We're all kind of pursuing that there. And maybe your there is, the latest gadget or gizmo, the latest something, or maybe it's like the latest form of entertainment, or maybe it's, eventually a new car, or a new pair of clothes, or new shoes, or maybe it's not something material, but it's like sex, or maybe it's like a relationship, or maybe it's even like getting married. maybe it's like that promotion that you've always wanted, or maybe it's like a house and like the white picket fence, or maybe it's like a family, or maybe it's a retirement, or maybe it's a great vacation. Maybe I don't know what it is for you, but we all have it there. We all have this thing in our mind of this is going to be the thing that satisfies me. And that is what we pursue with our whole lives. But let me ask you a question. What if you spend your entire life chasing after the there, and then you finally get it? What then? Have you ever thought of that? The there becomes the here. And then what? Like, let me tell you, I'm 31. I'm a little old. I'm an old gray beard. I actually have one little gray hair right here. Saw that in the morning. Saw that this morning in the mirror. So I'm 31. Like, I've experienced probably a little bit more than most of you guys. Just that I have a baby, it means I've experienced more than you guys. But I've experienced a lot of life. Like, I already told you that I chased after the girl, chased after relationships, and then I finally I have this beautiful wife, I get married, it's great, but it still won't satisfy my soul. I love my wife, but she still won't fulfill me. So then it's like, all right, well, maybe I'll go and get the career that I've always wanted. And let me tell you, I haven't always wanted to be a pastor, but I have in the last 10 years, and now I get to be a pastor of you guys, and I get to serve this campus, and I get to serve you guys, and I love what I'm doing. This is my dream job, and now I actually get to do it, but you know what? It doesn't satisfy me. It doesn't fulfill me. So then it's like, okay, well, maybe maybe it's just time to put down roots. Like, when you put down roots, then I'll actually feel like an adult, not like a child anymore. So maybe I'll buy a house, and I'll start a family. I'll start to actually give something back to the society. I'll just start procreating. And then it's like, all right, so maybe that's the thing that I should do. So all right, well, let's get this house. Let's have a baby. And then it's like we get this, God gives us this perfect house for this cheap price. I have this beautiful son, and they're awesome, but they still don't satisfy my soul. They still don't fulfill me. So what next? What next? What do we do? The thing is, a new relationship, a new location, a new promotion can't fix us. A change of circumstances can't fix you. A new person, a new place, a new thing can't fill your heart. It can't fill your soul. It can't straighten what is twisted. It can't fill what is lacking. When we seek after the temporary, we will only be temporarily satisfied. All these external things cannot fix the internal. So then maybe you might say, okay, look, I get it. All these external things, all these material things, all these things that I can see, those are just temporary. But all right, so I'll try to fix myself. Have you ever thought that? All right, well, I'll just fix the internal. And we've been going through a devotional as a church over the last 30 days, and part of that is some of us have fasted from things. And I was like, well, I'm going to fast from complaining because I've become a big complainer lately. And I'm like, I'm going to fast from complaining. And I don't know if you've ever done something like that where you're like, I want to change. And I'm going to try to change. But I'm going to try to change by myself. So you try to change, and over the first week, it's like, yeah, I've got this complaining thing down, pat, this is great. And then it's day 8, and you just become a complaining monster. You cannot stop doing it, and you're like, man, I'm off the wagon, this is terrible. And that's just I've just seen this in myself, I've seen this in people. It's when we try to fix ourselves, we just can't. You might have some success over a day or a week or a month. That's great. You have really good stamina, but then it's you kind of come back to where you started. There's something inside of us that is just broken. There's something inside of us that is just empty. If you want to flip with me to Jeremiah 2, verse 13. 2:13, God says, my people have committed 2 sins. They have forsaken me, the spring of living water, and have dug their own cisterns, broken cisterns that cannot hold water. So he says two things here. He's saying these are the sins that all of us have committed. Two things. He's saying, first, you've forsaken me. Second is that you have tried to dig your own cisterns. Like, I don't know if you guys know this, but we weren't meant to be broken. We weren't meant to be empty. That wasn't the plan. That wasn't the intention. That we were created to be filled. We were created to be satisfied. We were created to be provided for. We were created to not have any wants or any needs. We were created to be connected to God. We were created to be connected to the source of life. We were created to be connected to the source of love. We were created to be whole. But something happened. Somewhere down the line, something happened. And all of us have kind of done, the stiff arm to God. All of us have rejected that source of life. We've rejected those things, kind of turned our back on that, and we're like, well, we're going to go on our own way. And we're going to do it on our own. Because we have to have water, then we have to have these cisterns. It's like, all right, well, we're disconnected from the source of life, from this source of living water, but we have to have water somehow. So then we build these cisterns. If you don't know what a cistern is, it's like this waterproof tank. So all the rain comes in, it holds all the water. That's how it should work, and then you can go and get water. It should be great. It should be this great, sustainable source of water, but God is saying that every cistern that you build, it actually leaks. It's actually broken. Water comes in and it just comes out. You might be able to get a cup of water in there and might have some temporary satisfaction, but it's not sustainable. It's not sustainable. The thing is that there has to be something outside of us. There has to be something outside that's temporary. There has to be something that is eternal, that is going to provide sustainable satisfaction. The third point in your bulletin is that long-lasting or sustainable satisfaction can only come by consuming the living water. Long-lasting or sustainable satisfaction can only come by consuming the living water. There's one last passage I want to flip to. In John 4. This is what Jesus has to say about living water. He's talking to a Samaritan woman at this well. And he's saying, everyone who drinks this water will be thirsty again. She is basically at this well. She's getting water for him. And he's like, this water right here isn't going to sustain you. This water, you're going to end up thirsty again. This right here is not going to do it. This is just temporary. All that physical stuff that you're seeking after is just temporary. You're going to end up thirsty again. He's saying, but whoever drinks the water I give him will never thirst. Indeed, the water I give him will become in him a spring of water welling up to eternal life. The reality is that if you aren't connected to the living water, you'll always end up thirsty. It's only through Christ that you can be satisfied. And I don't know where you're at in the whole spectrum of things. Maybe you're just kind of new to this whole Jesus thing, and you're kind of excited about it, but you don't really know what that means for your life, and you're just like, I just want to know more. Maybe you're just, you got bamboozled into coming here, and you're like, I don't even want to go to church. This is the first time I've been in church. What is church? What is Jesus? I don't even believe in Jesus. Or you've been a Christian, and you've been following Christ for a long time, and you're in this place where you feel really dry and dissatisfied. Jesus is looking at every single one of us, and he's saying, I will quench your thirst. I will satisfy you. Just come to me. I am the living water. Drink of me. I met with a friend of mine a while back, and he went to this event called, it wasn't Passion, but it was a Passion event here on campus. Who here has heard about Passion before? Okay, most of you guys. So Passion is basically this movement. They have these conferences, and this movement of to get this generation, to get college students to just love God, to see God in just such a bigger way. Like they want our generation, us, to basically proclaim God and basically say that, like God is everything, and that God needs to be famous, that His name needs to be known to all people. And that our lives are to glorify God. So they have these huge conferences of there's like 20,000 plus students who packed like basketball arenas and football arenas, one in Atlanta, one in Houston, and they're in January, and then right before they go from campus to campus to campus to kind of get people excited and get people to go, and there was one at Ohio State. And I sat across from my friend the day after this event, and he looks at me, and his face is like beaming. Have you ever seen someone like that? His face, like they're just glowing, they're just radiant. It's like Moses who's in the tent, and he's seeing God face to face, and his face is just lighting up. He looks completely different. I'm sitting across from my friend, and he's like speechless. He's just like, what the heck? He can't even comprehend what happened last night. He's like, just something amazing happened. Like, just probably the most amazing moment in my life happened last night. I saw God for bigger than I've ever seen Him before. Do you know how big God is? He's just like completely in awe. He's like, I never want this to end, ever. I don't want this feeling to end. I don't want this moment to end, ever. And I look at him and I'm like, what you're experiencing right now is satisfaction. What you're experiencing right now is what God created you to experience. What you're experiencing right now is what it looks like to be filled. But here's the thing, it's not just some experience. I'm not just saying, man, all we need is just a great experience, because you know what usually happens is we have this great experience, and then the next day, we have work, and work sucks. And then we have class, and class sucks. And then we have life, and life just sucks, and everything sucks. And then it's just man, I had this great experience, and then, I had this great experience yesterday, and then today, why? I can't keep this going. Have you ever felt that way? Let me challenge you with one thing. I have never had a good session or a good season of prayer and walked out and felt dry, dissatisfied, and empty. I have never had a time where I am on my knees, where I'm just Jesus, I'm blocking out everything. I just want to see you face to face. I just want to see you. I just want to connect to you. I want to be in your presence. I want to know how big you are. I want you to just work in my life. I want you with everything that I got. All this other stuff just sucks, and I just want you. I've never had a time where I have had that moment where I'm just praying to God, praying in that way, and then walked out of the door and felt dry and dissatisfied and empty. Never. Never had a moment like that. We have these things called advances every semester. And most of you guys have gone on an advance. And if you haven't gone, you should go. It's October 2nd and 3rd. Shameless plug. But for you, if you haven't gone, it's free for you. So that's great. So you should definitely sign up or think about it. But basically, advances are this time where all of us as a community, we go to some retreat center somewhere out in the bush. And we just spend time with God, and we have this moment where we are just begging God to see Him face to face, to reveal Himself, to show up, and show Himself off to us for an entire weekend. That's our hope. That's our heart. I remember an advance 2 years ago. Some of you guys were there. It was the fall advance 2 years ago. We're in this little chapel. And during the whole weekend, what we had is this chalkboard. And on this chalkboard, it was in this prayer room. And basically, we were asking people to go into this prayer room and just write out areas of brokenness, areas where they felt enslaved, areas where they felt chained, areas where they felt empty, areas where they felt dissatisfied, sin areas. This was a time just to pour out all that crap in your life and just put it on the board. And then in the last session, we brought that board back out and we started talking about the cross. we start talking about how what Jesus does for all of us is that he basically he takes a sponge or takes whatever, and he just starts erasing all of those things. That is what he does. He takes all that brokenness. He takes all that dissatisfaction. He takes all that dryness, all that emptiness, all that sin, all that hurt, all that slavery and shame and all that stuff. He takes all of that on himself on the cross. He says, I got that. It's just wiped clean. And he doesn't just stop there. He's like, he overcomes all that death, overcomes all that junk, and then he's like, I'm going to put my life into you. Do you comprehend that? The God of the universe is like, I want to put myself into you. He's like, I'm going to fill you. I want to be the source of life. I want to be living water, like my presence in you forever. Like God in us. Like I was blown away. We had this worship after, and we were singing this song called "You Are Worthy," and the words go, "You are worthy, you are worthy, you are worthy, you are worthy to be praised forever and a day." And we're in this chapel, and I'm singing this, and we're just singing this lyric over and over and over. You are worthy, and I'm like, I just want to blow the roof off of this chapel. I'm sure they wouldn't appreciate that, but I just wanted to blow it off. I was like, this is incredible. Like we're just singing this, and I'm like, God is just He is in this room. He is changing us. He is making himself aware, making himself present. I'm like, this is unbelievable. And that's exactly what God wants for us. And he wants us, when we see him as bigger and better than anything else, when we see him for who he is and how big he is, and for what he has done for us, we worship. And this is the heart of satisfaction. This is how you get satisfaction. This is what satisfaction and fulfillment looks like. It looks like worshiping God, witnessing God for who he is, and worshiping him for who he is. And I wish I could have brought all of you guys in this big bus, and I would have gone to your high school, and I would have picked you up, and I would have brought you in a bus, because I wish that you could have been in this moment and experience that. I wish I could have brought the entire world into that moment. Invited everybody into that moment. Jesus in verse 14, he says, in him will become a spring of water welling up to eternal life. That Jesus puts himself, he puts his spirit in us, and then we become sources of living water. Have you ever thought about that? How amazing that is? That wherever we go, we can go to the driest places on earth, and we are giving people water. We're inviting people to taste the living water. We're inviting people to taste Christ. We're inviting people to see God. But that's exactly what I want right now, is that you guys right now are being invited into tasting the living water. That is what God wants for you. It's what he wants for our community. It's what he wants for the entire world. Can you imagine? Can you imagine what it would look like if we were a community, if we were a people who were filled in this way? Can you imagine what this campus would look like? Can you imagine what this city would look like? Can you imagine what this world would look like if we were a people who were filled with God? Who were filled with something eternal, something sustainable, not something that's temporary. Can you imagine that? Now let me ask you a question. Where are you at today? Are you filled? Or are you empty? If you're empty, you just have to ask Jesus to come into you. Maybe you don't have to bow and on your knees or anything, but maybe that's kind of what kind of metaphorically has to happen. It's just saying, God, I am sorry that I have rejected you as the source of life and the source of love. And now, like, I'm sorry that I've tried to dig my own cistern and kind of go on my own way and try to fill myself. I just want you to fill me. I just want you to come into my life. I just want you to be the one that my entire life is about. I want to drink of that water forever. Or maybe you're in a place where you feel filled. Well, maybe the question for you is, who can you invite? Who is one person in your life that you can invite to taste the living water? Who is one person? So I'm going to ask the band to come back up. I'm going to pray for us. I just want you guys just to have some time just to think about that. Like, what is that temporary satisfaction that you might be chasing after? And we have these connect cards inside the bulletin, and maybe it's just a chance just to write out, what is that thing? What is that temporary satisfaction that you're pursuing after? And just write that on the back. And maybe it's just a chance just to lay that down. Just be like, man, I want something sustainable. All right, so let me pray.